Episode 134 of Pokemon Horizons, titled Showdown at the Summit Mega Evolution, aired yesterday, and a lot was riding on this one after I felt pretty negative about the arcs so far. But when I tell you this episode gave me whiplash after whiplash after whiplash, I'm not kidding. It was like being on a roller coaster, dude. The climax of the main storyline is raging onwards, some of my opinions are too, and we have to talk about it all in today's review video. The episode began with the Mega Evolution battle continuing between our heroes and the explorers, and when Glalie freezes Lucario's paws, he's forced to focus on dodging. By the way, can I just say I found it absurdly hilarious how ridiculously huge Glalie was for parts of this episode. Look at this Goliath, bruh. Why is he like 12 feet tall? He could just swallow all of his opponents whole if he wanted to. Thankfully, he's tiny again in the next scene. Man, I find animation errors to be so funny. Shortly after, Alt manages to deflect Glalie's blizzard off of Sablei's shield to freeze some boulders nearby, and then Freed lures the opponents in by turning his Starmie into a fidget spinner, while Alt's Sableye deflects his own Confuse Ray off of the icy boulders, hitting the distracted Glalie and Aerodactyl perfectly, confusing them. This was a genius strategy from Alt, and I love how Freed helped too. Their teamwork then continues, with Starmie deflecting Psybeam off of Sablei's shield, hitting the opponents hard, and there's something really satisfying and well written about our heroes using their bonds and the bonds between their Pokemon to outplay the explorers. Hopefully it's making the explorers realise the one thing they're lacking. Meanwhile, Lucario uses his aura to begin beating up Medicham with his ears or hair or whatever those are, even when he doesn't have use of his paws. Great use of aura there, by the way, good job, Roy. But then Medicham randomly un-Mega Evolves out of nowhere. I really hope this is the writers finally showing that the strong spheres do disrupt Mega Evolution, like I've prayed for and theorised on. It may be too little too late, but at least it's a step in the right direction. Either way, Lucario takes the opportunity to strike hard, and in this moment both Coral and Sidian realise they're having so much fun battling such tough competition without strong spheres making it boring. Coral even gets so carried away with her fun that she hits the detonate button on her Glalie. Luckily, Freed is the GOAT and uses his Starmie to protect Sableye and Lucario. Basically, Glalie's refrigerator ability turns self-destruct from a normal type into an ice type, so Sableye isn't immune to it, but Starmie does resist it. That was a really high IQ split-second decision from Freed that allowed Sableye and Lucario to survive while the others get knocked out. And dude, I love that this battle allowed Coral to rekindle with what she finds the most fun, and that was what led to the explorers being defeated, because having fun battling is the antithesis of strong spheres. They remove the fun, and the villains are finally starting to make that connection. Sidian realizes himself that their strong sphere usage in the past has weakened their bonds with their Pokemon, which is why they lost. He shows a lot of reason and maturity here. He admits that he knows that this battle proved strong spheres will always lose to strong bonds, so he turns his back on them. This felt so in character for the level-headed Sidian to see the truth rather than being blinded by emotion. I love that Sidian and Coral came to the same realization in two different ways. Awesome character writing here, man. But of course, there's always one because Chaos can't accept it. She strong spheres Medicham, claiming it's what her Pokemon wants. But Roy retaliates, saying that Medicham doesn't want the strong sphere, she just wants her trainer, Chaos. And then he proves it to her by becoming one with his Lucario through aura and destroying Medicham effortlessly. Watching this and seeing her Medicham so injured makes Chaos break down. She realizes that yeah, Medicham did go through all of this just for her. And I just want to say, come on, Chaos, you're a grown adult woman. There's no excuse for being this dumb, I'm sorry. You're a whole school teacher. You knew the effects of Laquium of strong spheres. You were okay with locking up the 6 heroes and abusing them for a year, with attempting to kill literal children. But this is where you draw the line? This is what makes you realise? Bruh, come on. I will say though, Roy using his special aura bond with Lucario, kind of the personification of the closest you can be with your Pokemon, to prove Chaos's ideology wrong, that was a really cool idea. So despite me still wishing Dot was the one to prove Chaos wrong in like a final rival showdown, this episode definitely did save the Mega Evolution battle for me. This was far better than what they did last episode. I love how it wasn't super heavy-handed, you know? It pushed the explorers towards redemption, but they're not good people suddenly. They just came to the realization that they don't fully support the ideology they were pushing. But then, Pokemon Horizons gave me the biggest whiplash of all time by going from something I loved to something I opposite of loved. Things really started to fall apart again here for me. Because meanwhile, Liko and Diana reach the centre of Lqua, reuniting with Team Amethio, and they find Spinel's Laquium mining operation. What a crew this is, by the way, 6 absolute goats. Yeah, that includes Zir and Konya, or Zerk and Onya in the dub, I think. What a weird name change. So Spinel triggers the alarm to cause the drills to activate the Laquium core, making the Laquium infect wild Pokemon and causing rampages. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm so confused, man. I could have sworn that Lqua was meant to be deserted with no wild Pokemon left. How did they just spawn in out of thin air? Am I missing something here? Our heroes dive in to help with their non-Terra Pokemon, and the next segment of the episode is basically just them trying to stop the rampaging Pokemon with really weird, poor writing decisions. Like, bruh, why is Zygarde, the Zygarde, Overlord Protector of the entire world's ecosystem? Why is he incapable of handling this by himself? It's literally just a few wild Pokemon. Zygarde should be able to settle it in seconds, but instead he's wasted on struggling against a Hydreigon and a Luxray? Really? Zygarde can't handle 2 Pokemon? This is silly, man. At least Zerk's Rhydon and Anne's Sandslash and Onya's Golduck are popping off, but everyone else is being done so dirty. Like, you're telling me our heroes are strong enough to 1v1 and win against the Laquium Enraged 6 heroes, but they can't handle a few wild Pokemon? Really? Great rating, guys. And it gets even worse, because then Liko decides to send out Meowscarada and Hatterene, 2 of the Terra Team members? Bruh, why? Why are we risking the mission again for no reason? None of our Pokemon are knocked out, the wild Pokemon don't need to be healed immediately. It's so strange, Liko is smarter than this, man. And now I realise exactly what the writers were trying to cook here. Basically 2 wild Pokemon try and strike Meowscarada and Hatterene, so then Armarouge and Arcanine dive in the way to protect them because they're part of the Terra Team, you know, they can't be defeated. And somehow this hit defeats Armarouge and Arcanine, bruh. Like, are we serious right now? We really made Liko make the dumb decision to send out her Terra Team just to give an excuse for Armarouge to be defeated in the most underwhelming, disappointing way ever? That was the only reason, really? I genuinely cannot fathom how dirty Armarouge was done here. How dirty Liko was done here. Like, how was Armarouge's only contribution in the final arc getting between 2 wild Pokemon and then taking a hit for Meowscarada and being defeated? Are we being for real? Like, bruh, even Anne, Zerk and Onya are being treated better than Liko in this episode. They at least got cool moments. This really does suck, man. This was the most contrived way to write Armarouge out of the final arc that I've ever seen. I will say though, from a totally biased perspective, I'm so happy that Gliscor was the one to pop off out of all the wild Pokemon. Gliscor is one of my favourite Pokemon ever, and it feels so rare seeing one in the anime. And dude, I want to know what the heck they did to Diana's voice actress in that studio to achieve this line delivery. Listen to this. She really gave that everything in her soul. It kinda jump scared me a little bit. Such passion, such fear, such desperation. You really wouldn't know that she has another 4 Pokemon on her team, huh? Then in the most unfortunately underwhelming moment ever, Amethio activates his Zygarde cube to transform Zygarde into its complete form, and this scene just did not hit whatsoever, man. The absolute lack of special animation, the lack of music, the lack of just aura. It stopped the moment from having any impact or any sense of significance whatsoever. Like, Zygarde really transformed just to calm down some birds and butterflies? Dude, compare this to Zygarde in the X and Y anime, how much grander and more epic it was handled. Amethio's Zygarde is a nothing burger. I feel nothing towards it. So not only did the writers fail at showing Amethio bonding with and collecting Zygarde in its cells, but they also failed at making it feel special whatsoever in this episode too. Anyway, Cap and Pagogo pop off by breaking all of the drills. Is this generation's version of Surfing Pikachu? And then all of our heroes reunite, and Spinel arrives for the final showdown. So yeah, I'm gonna be totally honest, this entire sequence didn't work for me. I don't really understand why there were wild Pokemon here in the first place. And on top of that, most of our heroes felt totally underpowered. Their Pokemon felt puny compared to normal. Zygarde especially was just a laughingstock, and Liko again was utterly sidelined. But then, thank God, for the second time this episode gave me whiplash. Earlier we went from peak to near trash, and now it's time to jump from near trash back to peak again. What a relief. We flash to Kamuri Town outside of Lqua, remember the place before the time skip? And the Pokemon there are rampaging from the Laquium spreading. But then dude, the mighty G arrives and begins calming down the rampaging Pokemon. Then Molly gets involved too, healing the injured Pokemon, while Murdoch and Orla are leading Pokemon to safety, and Perrin and Wyatt are recording all of this to use it to prove the Rising Voltacklers are good people to the entire world. Finally the citizens of Kamuri Town believe it too. I cannot put into words the whiplash I felt going from that stuff in the center of Lqua to this stuff outside of Lqua. This sequence with the adult members was by far my favourite part of this arc. I complained a lot last week about how I hated the adult Rise and Volt tacklers being sidelined and done so dirty by just staying on the ship and doing nothing. I really criticised the writers for that, because I felt it made no sense whatsoever. But now it seems the writers were one step ahead of my criticism, because they finally gave the adult members something to do. Something in character, something well written, something that will change the world's opinion of them. The writers completely proved me wrong here, and I'm man enough to admit it. I was wrong. Not about everything, of course, I'm not going to get carried away. There's still a lot of valid criticisms I have, but on this topic, the adult RVTs, I was wrong, because this was absolutely peak, dude. Then the episode ended on even more peak, with all of the 6 heroes arriving in the most climactic, triumphant moment ever, followed by the Terror Team gathering too. The entire army is ready to end Spinel's villainy once and for all. Dude, absolute whiplash is the way I'd describe this episode. We really went from me disliking everything last episode, to then loving the beginning of this episode, to then hating the middle part of the episode, to then loving the final part of the episode again. My brain couldn't keep up. Everything was up and down, back and forth. But man, I mean it when I say when Horizons does things right, it really does things right, dude. Because the final 5 minutes of the episode gave me absolute chills. It really got me invested in the arc emotionally again. The writers proved me wrong on my criticisms about the adult members, and they also finally added the connection between Mega Evolution and Strong Spheres, which was something I criticised too. Maybe too little too late on that front, but it's better than nothing, you know? And they kind of rectified some of my criticisms about Dot too. Because although I do still wish Dot was the one to battle Chouse, I do think that Roy proving her wrong with his aura with his Lucario, the personification of the bond between trainer and Pokemon, the antithesis of Strong Spheres, that did work really effectively. And I really loved everything to do with Sidian and Coral in this one. I loved the mentor teamwork between Freed and Alt. So yeah, this episode was definitely better than last week's one, but it still wasn't perfect though. I'm gonna be honest, the entire middle section sucked. All the stuff with the rampaging wild Pokemon in the centre of Lqua sucked. Liko being done so dirty and sidelined again with Armor Rouge sucked. Zygarde sucked. He was puny and laughable and unimpactful. But there is a lot of potential here, man. They ended on a really high note. So as long as they make up for it next week and really allow Liko to shine, really pop off with a great episode, an awesome final battle, then this arc is 100% savable. So I'm gonna hope for the best, because the end of the episode allowed me to. Let me know your thoughts on the episode below. Do you agree or disagree with what I'm saying? And also be sure to check out the video on screen right now if you didn't hear the insane new arc for Pokemon Horizons that was announced. It is absolutely crazy, dude. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and join our Discord server using the link in the description. And thank you so much to Juscadia, Toten, Not Mini, Hope, Shareborn, Jay, Finny, Shiny, and all of my other incredible channel members on screen right now. You guys are legends, I mean it. So on that note, thank you all so much for watching, and best wishes until we meet again!